Welcome to this APTA podcast.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of APTA Podcasts. I'm the APTA President, Kyle Covington, and today I'm excited to dive into an important topic and moment for our profession, the future of accreditation in physical therapy education. Recently, the American Physical Therapy Association announced that the Commission on Accreditation for Physical Therapy Education, or CAPTE, and the American Board of Physical Therapy Residency and Fellowship Education, or ABPTRFE, will begin the process of merging into a single integrated commission. This merger is about much more than just streamlining. It's about ensuring that accreditation keeps pace with the evolving trends in education. It's about reducing administrative burden for programs, and it's also about enhancing consistency and quality of education for physical therapy in our profession. I'm excited to be joined by four incredible leaders who are guiding this transition for us. Kathy Zalewski, who's the chair of the CAPTE board, Terry McGee, who's the chair of the ABPTRFE board, Mary Romanello, who is the director of accreditation at APTA, and Kendra Harrington, the director of residency and fellowship education at APTA. So welcome to all of you. It's great to have you here, and I'm really excited about this conversation, both as APTA president and as somebody who in my daily work life intersects with both of CAPTE and ABPTRFE a lot. So thanks again for being here. So I'm just gonna kick us off with a question to everybody or anybody. So this is really a historic decision for our profession. How about walking us through why now was the right time for CAPTE and ABPTRFE to merge together? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Kyle, I do. This is a historic decision, and the timing of the decision is really important. What we've realized is that CAPTE and ABPTRFE are not two separate stories. They're two chapters of the same story. And so bringing CAPTE and ABPTRFE together now assures that we're able to align standards, reduce duplication, and provide a framework for quality across the full continuum of physical therapy education. There's also a bit of a broader context. Higher education is really under a lot of pressure right now to demonstrate value, to demonstrate efficiency, to demonstrate accountability. And by merging, we strengthen our position not only to advocate for physical therapy, but to collaborate effectively with universities and accreditors and show that we are very forward-looking and united as a profession. So the timing is right. The needs of the profession and of higher education demand a unified and strategic approach. And this merger allows us to deliver that.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that that mindset of not only what this does for us internally as a profession, but how it positions us to really meet our vision of impacting society in a different way. Other thoughts about why now is the right time?
Sure, Kyle. I think it's a great time because this builds on significant work that both CAPTE and ABPTRFE have been doing. They did a lot of self-reflection over the last few years, and both groups really considered what their governance structure was, how they might improve budgeting, looking at efficiencies and exploring innovation for programs and for the commissions themselves. And so in doing that, we look at how do we advance the profession through this merger and at the same time help programs possibly decrease costs, decrease some of the burden. Like you said, it affects you in both because you are involved with residency and fellowship and with CAPTE, and how might we pull those things together so that you don't have the burden of two separate accreditation entities. So I think it's a really great time to see how we improve our efficiencies by staff, by the commissions, in doing so advance the profession of physical therapy.
Yeah, and what are y'all's thoughts on, what were some of the key considerations that led to this decision? I know timing is now, and we're talking about that a little bit, but what were some of the details of what led to this, and how does it also align with those future needs that Kathy and Mary have been talking about? Any thoughts on that?
One of the things I'd love to hear, Terry, your response to as well. We've met together as our boards, and in the conversations that we've been having, really the main focus has come down to mission and vision alignment. CAPTE and ABPTRFE share the same fundamental goal, which is cultivating excellence in physical therapy education broadly. And this merger really recognizes that those missions aren't separate. they really align as part of one continuous commitment to the professional education. Terry, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts about our initial meetings.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest commonalities that we recognized is that for too long we operated in silos, even though we did have so much so much similar in when it came down to our missions and what we were attempting to do and foster growth along the learner continuum. So from that standpoint, this unified approach to accreditation, it just made sense at this period in time, especially with the profession and the way that it's evolving, and both of our goals to support innovation and really try to strengthen our constituents as lifelong learners.
Great. Any other thoughts to share about sort of how it aligns with our future of education and what led us to this point?
I also would like to bring us back also to a focus not just on the educational side of things, but on the healthcare side of things as well. We are all preparing individuals who are providers, and healthcare is an integrated, value-based, team-oriented delivery model. And our accreditation structures need to be the same thing. They need to be integrated, they need to be value-based, and they need to be team-oriented. This transition helps position the structure of accreditation to look like the structure of the people that are the environments that our people are working in.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think a lot of times we think about CAPTE and ABPTRFE as there for education, but really they're there to ensure that as a profession, we're meeting the needs of healthcare and society in the best ways possible. So I love the framing of this merger around that. So thanks a lot. So let's talk a little bit more about the benefits of this merger, maybe separately to CAPTE and ABPTRFE, but obviously collectively as the merge continues. But Kathy, tell us a little bit more about, programs often tell us that accreditation can be complex and time consuming. Anybody that's been through that process may have experienced feelings like that. So how do you think this merger is going to make that process smoother and more effective for programs?
Yeah, so I'm a program director as well, and accreditation can be complex and time consuming. And that's why the merger matters. By bringing CAPTE and ABPTRFE together, our hope is that we cut down on duplication, create clear expectations, make the process feel more seamless for programs. And the real benefit in my mind is if operationally we do a really good job, then faculty and programs have the opportunity to focus on what matters, which isn't filling out accreditation forms, it's teaching and supporting students, and hopefully exploring creative approaches to physical therapy education that we don't yet imagine well, because we are operating in, like Terry said, in our silos. So accreditation will still be rigorous. We're not going to pretend that the rigor will change when we merge, but it should also feel clear and supportive and opening a door to innovation.
Yeah, that's great. And Terry, similarly, the residency and fellowship programs, we've talked a little bit about this already, they're critical for advancing clinical expertise. So how will this integration strengthen support for these programs and the educators who lead them in that regard?
Kyle, I think one thing that's important to note is that the integration doesn't change that, right? But it does enhance ABPTRFE's credibility under higher recognition by coming in and integrating with CAPTE. I think we jointly believe it'll reinforce the notion that professional development doesn't stop with graduation at the DPT level, right? That it continues through this advanced level of training. And that's a huge step, in our opinion, of building a true culture of lifelong learning.
Yeah, that's great. So a big thing I've thought about a lot in as APTA president is how are we looking toward the future? How are we evolving across the organization? And how are we doing that, recognizing and building on the strength and success of our past and present, but evolving into the future? So thinking a little bit more about that innovation to the future, Mary, I know one of the goals of the merger is to better address evolving trends in accreditation. What are some of the innovations you're most excited about as we move forward?
A couple of the things that are forefront in accreditation right now are how do accreditors advance or promote innovation? How do we look at decreasing barriers for programs as they go through the accreditation process? And through all of that, how do we look at costs for students? Because both internally in the profession as well as the external community are concerned about those things. And so I'm excited about the fact that, for example, ABPTRFE and CAPTE have already done some collaboration. And an example of that is a pilot with 2 DPT programs that came to CAPTE and said, hey, we have an entry-level program. We have residency and fellowship. What's the possibility with select students who want to go into residency and are ready to do that we might overlap the hours in clinical education, and it can count for both, so that an individual is finishing their entry-level program while getting a head start on their residency program. And 2 DPT programs are doing that now with the approval of CAPTE and ABPTRFE to pilot those. And so by doing that, that's another innovative way to actually look at how might we decrease the barriers to the pathway towards residency and fellowship completion and potentially board certification, which enhances the profession. And how do we decrease costs for students and make it economically worth their while to do it? So that's something that I'm really excited about, to look at those kinds of opportunities that this merger can provide for students, for programs, and for the communities. It also gives us as staff an opportunity to really look at our processes with the commissions and say, how do we streamline those? How do we make reporting easier for programs? How might we facilitate site visits with places that have both residency and fellowship and entry-level programs? So there's lots of opportunities, and I'm really excited about decreasing barriers, providing opportunities for innovation, and streamlining things.
That's great. And Kendra, I'm curious from your perspective, we know this change is about ensuring accreditation stays relevant and impactful. And we've talked about why that's important, not only for our profession, but also for society and healthcare at large. How do you see this helping shape the future of physical therapy education over the next decade or so?
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So I know Kathy actually talked a little bit about this earlier, but the merger really helps to position us to think about accreditation as a seamless journey across the entire continuum of physical therapy education. By bringing CAPTE and ABPTRFE together, it helps to create, and actually the task force had already created a unified vision that not only strengthens consistency and quality, but it helps both physical therapy assistant, and residency and fellowship education to respond more quickly to the constantly changing healthcare environment. And so over the next decade, I see this helping programs in numerous ways, as integration of emerging areas like digital health, interprofessional practice, and also help to rethink models of clinical education, similar to what Mary just mentioned with this new integrated DPT to residency pilot program that's happening now. So most importantly, I think it means that physical therapists will be better supported from the very first professional program through advanced practice and hopefully into leadership roles within our profession, which ultimately will help to build a public trust in our profession and ensures that our profession will continue to deliver the highest quality care.
That's great. So we've talked about, all the excitement in this and in the change and how historic this is for our profession. But the reality is, anytime we make a change like this, that comes with a transition, and it comes with questions and concerns. So, maybe Kathy and Terry, from your perspective as chairs of your individual boards, what would you say to programs, faculty, students, other interested parties who are wondering what this will mean for them in the short term? Any thoughts on that?
I'm happy to jump in, Kathy. I think the big thing is we want to reassure everyone that the fundamentals of CAPTE and ABPTRFE are not going to change immediately. This is just not a switch that we're going to flick, and everything is upended for DPT programs, PTA programs, as well as residency and fellowship. That this is going to be a multi-year transition. We're going to be very deliberate in what we do. And one of the things I think the task force really labored over is how we can effectively communicate along the way. And I think that's really important because it demonstrates how supportive we are of the programs that we're looking to assist them along the way during their accreditation processes.
Kyle, I completely agree with what Terry said, and I want to add to it a little bit. I think one of the concerns that I think that I want to take the time to alleviate a little bit, especially comes from our physical therapist assistant educators. And I'd like to speak to them directly a bit. The bringing physical therapy under one umbrella will enhance the voice of our physical therapist assistant educators to a much broader audience than they have the opportunity to inform right now. And there are some things that the PTA education is doing better than anyone else in higher education right now. And an example of that is their focus on community, how to educate to reflect the needs of the community that they are embedded in, including a focus on educating people who are of that community. And that voice now gets an opportunity to be amplified throughout all of physical therapy education. I agree with Terry. In the short term, I don't see a difference in the day-to-day operations that will be experienced by our two organizations. And I look forward to voices that sometimes don't feel that they are always as included to have a broader impact in education broadly.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that forward. I think that's a great point, especially as we sort of circle back to our vision in impacting society, our mission around building community. And that's a great example of how this merger might enhance both of those things. So thanks for that. So Mary and Kendra, we've said in our communications that staff at APTA are going to be cross-trained to support both areas. How do you envision that helping to improve customer service?
We have two different staffs right now, and at the same time, many of them are doing the same thing. For example, residency and fellowship has to schedule site visits. CAPTE schedules site visits. You have program reviewers, they're doing. So this is an opportunity with the cross-training for someone to always have a backup. It actually contributes to helping each other, which then means, I realize that life happens. People get sick, they have to take care of family members, different things like that, whether it be at the programs or at the staff. This way, there's always going to be someone who has that backup, who understands what another job is, so that when someone calls or communicates with us and needs something, if someone happens to be out, they can still get a response pretty promptly and continue on to do the things that they need to do. So it also contributes to the fact that you have more brains contributing to the conversation about how do we resolve this problem? How do we deal with this barrier? How do we help programs? And we've had a number of instances like that where we've looked at different ways to manage the process for programs, and it's been able to expedite what they need to do in order to maintain their accreditation or gain accreditation. So the cross-training is going to give us the opportunity to be more flexible, to be more adaptable, and respond to our programs to their needs a little bit quicker.
That's great. And any other thoughts?
Yeah, if I were to build off of that more, there's a lot that staff do for both accreditors on the back end, from running accreditation workshops to creating webinars, tutorials, or resources for programs to assist them in the accreditation process. And so, having a unified staff, as Mary had pointed, just puts more brains together to really create better resources and be able to serve our programs even better and help them during their accreditation from initial straight through renewal of accreditation and the lifelong of that program.
Yeah, that's great. And it's a great segue to what I wanted to talk about next, which is just around what are our opportunities for further collaboration and leadership in this area. So I'm curious for anybody who wants to chime in on this. This obviously brings together two groups, CAPTE and ABPTRFE, both of which have had a long history of incredible experience. So how do you all see this collaboration strengthening the voice of physical therapy in higher education more broadly?
I think by creating a unified voice across the continuum of physical therapy education, we can bring the strengths of both CAPTE and ABPTRFE to a broader audience. This idea of a unified voice in higher ed, that matters. Universities, regulators, other health professions look for coherence and clarity. And now being able to speak with one voice about standards and quality and the educational trajectory from the moment a student enters the program through advanced clinical training, that's going to have impact. And that's going to have impact even in programs that don't offer the full spectrum of physical therapy education. It also enhances our ability to collaborate with higher ed leaders. Instead of two separate bodies, we now are presenting a coordinated perspective that reinforces the value of physical therapy both as an academic discipline and as a critical part of the healthcare system. So this collaboration strengthens our voice, strengthens our ability to be an advocate, reduces confusion, ensures physical therapy is a recognized leader in educational excellence.
And if I were to maybe go off of that one, Kathy, very similar thoughts on my end. You know, it really helps to amplify the collective expertise of both ABPTRFE and CAPTE. With CAPTE having decades of experience, you know, ensuring quality in entry-level education, ABPTRFE is bringing to the table their deep knowledge in advancing post-professional training. So together, that helps to create a stronger, more unified voice throughout higher education. And it helps to represent the full continuum of physical therapy education. So much to what Kathy had mentioned, allowing us to more effectively advocate with universities, health systems, policymakers, really to help demonstrate that physical therapy is serious about preparing clinicians who are not only competent, but also equipped for advanced practice, leadership, and innovation.
That's great. So my last question, which I think is a fun one, is, you know, 5 or 10 years from now, when we're all reflecting on this historic transition and decision, I'd love to hear what you each think you hope people will say about this decision and its impact on physical therapy when we look back.
Well, I'll go back and say and reflect something that Terry started in the beginning. You know, we were siloed. CAPTE and ABPTRFE operated in their own silos. And I hope that this is the moment that people said accreditation stopped thinking in silos and started acting as one community with a shared vision for advancing our profession. And I think if we can say 10 years from now that a stronger voice came out of this merger, that's a good thing.
That's great. Terry, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think ultimately, I hope that programs feel like accreditation is less burdensome, that educators feel like they're heard and supported, and that students ultimately see a very defined career path for them that starts from the day they walk into the door through advanced clinical practice, and ultimately that's what's going to elevate what we bring to the table to benefit the needs of society.
Mary, 10 years from now, what do you hope people are saying or thinking?
I'm going to hope that we can look back and say that CAPTE and ABPTRFE chose a forward-thinking path, that they facilitated innovation across education and practice, and contributed to achieving physical therapy's vision for excellence. And in doing so, education programs across the learner continuum have met high standards while accommodating the needs of students, of clinicians, of educators, and advancing the profession.
Kendra, you get the last word.
I know. So summarizing what my colleagues have said, again, hopefully in 10 years from now, I hope people look back and say this is really a pivotal moment for our profession, and that we came together to truly strengthen education across that entire continuum. I'm hoping it is evident that it becomes a more efficient, responsive, and innovative system. Similar to what Mary said about that this decision hopefully will have direct benefits to students, faculties, but also to patients, because hopefully it's going to produce graduates who are not just prepared for practice, but again, they're ready to grow, to lead, and really to push the profession forward in ways we can't yet imagine.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you to all of you for sharing your insights and leadership. I hope that those listening feel the excitement and commitment and dedication that you all have for this historic change. And whether they work in the education space, and I also hope there's a lot of listeners out there that are getting this information and recognizing that this has major implications for our profession and our practice well beyond education, and that we've got leaders excited and committed to doing this in a thoughtful and methodical approach. So thank you all for the time that you dedicate to this. The merger of CAPTE and ABPTRFE represents an exciting step forward, a more unified, innovative approach to accreditation like we've talked about, and one that will reduce burdens on programs, supports educators, and really importantly, strengthens the preparation of physical therapists and physical therapist assistants to meet those evolving needs of our society. So if you want more details, please review APTA's new report, which is the future of accreditation in physical therapy, a model for moving forward as an educational community. That's available on CAPTE's website. I'm APTA President Kyle Covington. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of APTA Podcasts.